Welcome to The Explainer. We are jumping right into something completely wild today. The thrilling, frankly brutal story of how China was unified for the very first time. It's this fascinating mix of massive technological leaps, sheer ruthlessness, and, believe it or not, an absolute obsession with data that transformed a totally fractured landscape into a single, colossal superpower.
Picture this, an era of pure, unadulterated chaos. We're talking 140 different warring states, fighting tooth and nail for dominance in the fertile Yellow River Valley. For centuries, this place was just an endless battleground. Every time a reigning dynasty got even a little bit weak, boom, vassals and kingdoms would declare independence and just splinter the map all over again. In this brutally competitive environment, you either survived or you got conquered. And ultimately, all 140 of these entities were crushed into one singular powerhouse.
Section 1. Birth of Chinese identity, unified Han ethnicity.
So, to understand how we actually get to a single empire, we really have to look at the early Shang and Zhao dynasties. They used a process called Sinicization, which acted like a terrifyingly effective three-step algorithm. Step 1. Conquer a neighboring state or just force them to be a vassal. Step 2. Force cultural assimilation. Basically, make them adopt Han Chinese customs. And Step 3, actively destroy their history by burning their books and cultural artifacts. Literally, hundreds of ethnic groups were just completely erased this way.
Section 2. The Iron Age Revolution, a technological shift.
Now, conquering all of China requires a massive military, and that brings us to a colossal technological disruption, the shift from bronze to iron. Here's what's so interesting about this. Bronze was actually a higher quality metal for weapons, right? But it was incredibly expensive and really hard to make perfectly. Iron, on the other hand, is basically everywhere. So while an iron sword was maybe a bit lower quality than a pristine bronze one, the sheer abundance of iron allowed these aggressive states to completely explode their army sizes. We're talking jumping from 50,000 to over a mind-boggling 1 million soldiers. Plus, mass-produced iron tools created a huge agricultural boom, which made populations totally skyrocket.
Section 3. The ruthless rise of Qin, from buffer to superpower. With million-man armies clashing out there, surviving meant you had to be brutally efficient. And that brings us to the ultimate disruptor, the state of Qin. They adopted a philosophy called legalism. Basically, legalism strips all power from corrupt, inherited feudal lords and centralizes everything directly under the king. It's built on this deeply cynical idea that people are naturally going to disobey, so you need uncompromising laws and incredibly harsh punishments to keep control. Oh, and the king? He promoted administrators purely based on highly monitored performance reviews, kind of like a ruthless corporate ladder.
And to review those administrators, the Qin state became utterly obsessed with data. Seriously, they tracked 13 crucial statistics across all their territories. We're talking the exact count of livestock, the number of healthy men and women, right down to the precise amount of grain sitting in the granaries. If your numbers were bad as an administrator, you were severely punished and immediately replaced. This hyper-focus on data let them optimize their entire society for war.
This extreme micromanagement fundamentally changed everyday life. The state literally linked 10 households together. If one person in that group broke the law and the others didn't report it, all 10 families would be executed. Yeah, incredibly cruel, but undeniably efficient. They used this total control to manage food granaries for famine relief, offer tax breaks to families having more babies, which meant more future soldiers, and they forced the standardization of weights and measurements to keep their data tracking completely flawless.
Section 4. Forging the First Empire, Ying Zheng's War Machine.
In 246 BCE, a 13-year-old kid named Ying Zheng takes the throne, and he totally unleashes this data-driven war machine in an overwhelming, rapid-fire blitzkrieg. In 230 BCE, the Han capital falls. By 228, Zhao is destroyed from the inside out by internal paranoia. In 225, they literally flood the Wei capital. 223 BCE, they defeat Chu's staggering 1 million-man army. 222, Yan is conquered after they try and fail to assassinate Ying Zheng. And finally, in 221 BCE, the Qi just completely surrender without a fight. Boom. Total unification in less than a decade.
So as the supreme ruler of everything, Ying Zheng decides king just isn't gonna cut it anymore. He takes a new title, Qin Shi Huang, the first sovereign emperor, and he abolishes the ancient feudal system overnight. He stripped power from over 120,000 powerful nobles and immediately replaced them with his own data-driven administrators.
Now what do you do with thousands of furious, newly displaced nobles?
You make sure they absolutely cannot fight back. He confiscated all civilian weapons across the entire continent, melted them all down, and cast them into 12 colossal statues. Each of these things weighed a staggering 29 tons. The message was loud and clear. Physical resistance is physically impossible.
Then came the great standardization. Imagine waking up and finding out your local money, your calendar, even the way you write words is suddenly illegal. He mandated one single, simplified Chinese writing script and one unified currency, shape, and size. He essentially forced the entire continent to reboot its operating system. He even instituted forced labor, 1 month every 2 years, to build standardized imperial highways and to connect all those localized border walls into the staggering megaproject we now know as the Great Wall of China.
Erase the past to control the future. To make sure absolutely nobody questioned his wild new reality, he implemented the ultimate form of censorship. Administrators were ordered to scour libraries and burn any historical text that contradicted his narrative. The only books spared from the flames were practical ones on science and agriculture. He intentionally kept the population totally ignorant so they'd stay compliant.
Section 5. The Rapid Fall of Qin. A violent implosion. But here's where the story takes a massive twist. The emperor was absolutely obsessed with living forever. He wanted to see his empire rule for 10,000 years. So, his alchemists prescribe him mercury. Yeah, believing this liquid metal is the elixir of eternal life, he drinks it regularly. Spoiler alert, it did not make him immortal. The toxic metal slowly poisoned him to death. The irony is just off the charts.
And without his terrifying presence keeping everyone in line, the whole system just completely collapsed. It all came down to a fatal flaw in their ruthless, data-driven, legalist culture. What exactly happens when your uncompromising laws are literally impossible to follow?
Well, you get the Rainstorm Rebellion. The legal code allowed for absolutely zero context or human error. The penalty for being late to a military rendezvous? Execution. So when 2 generals were delayed by a massive, uncontrollable rainstorm, they did the math. They were dead if they showed up late, so they had literally nothing left to lose. They just marched their army in the opposite direction and sparked an empire-wide revolt.
That rebellion was a spark hitting a massive powder keg. 6 massive cracks shattered the empire. All the suppressed hatred for the unbearable government spying where you had to report your own neighbors, the deadly forced public labor on the Great Wall, the deep lack of cultural integration, the punishing tax policies starving arid regions, the vicious infighting among the elites, and of course, those deadly, uncompromising laws. Everyday citizens finally realized they had absolutely nothing left to lose. It is just wild to look at the timeline here. Total unification is achieved in 221 BCE. By 210 BCE, the first emperor dies of poisoning, and by 207 BCE, the capital falls and the dynasty ends. This ultimate unified state, meticulously designed to last 10,000 years, shattered completely in just 14 years. Which leaves us with a really fascinating, frankly provocative thought to take away. The Qin Dynasty's reign was just a blink of an eye in history. Yet, their standardized writing, centralized bureaucracy, and mega infrastructure projects absolutely laid the foundation for China's immense power for the next 2,000 years. But it came at a catastrophic human cost. So, it forces us to ask, is the foundation of a lasting empire ever really worth the cost of absolute tyranny? It's a heavy question, right? And it perfectly captures the awe-inspiring yet terrifying legacy of China's first emperor.